is Camille. Today I'm going to be talking about Obsidian by Jennifer L. Armentrout. So I actually picked this up for the sole reason as it was free on the Amazon Kindle recently. I saw a tweet from Jennifer L. Armentrout and it was like, hey, if you haven't read Obsidian yet, it is free on the Kindle store. So I have a Nook, but I also have the Kindle app on my phone. So I downloaded it and just on a whim in case I wanted to read it, and then a few days later I picked it up and I couldn't put it down. It was so good. I was not expecting what I got. I know a lot of booktubers have been reviewing this recently because they've received the bind-up copy. However, I was just not expecting what I got. I heard a lot of, it's Twilight with aliens, and I've never read Twilight, but I did see the comparisons, but I also saw a lot of good. And I really liked what I saw, so I'm really excited to talk about it. Obsidian is about a girl who moves to a small town. Her name is Katie. She is a book blogger, and she moves next door to these kind of strange people. And her mom is a nurse, so she's not home a lot, and she ends up kind of going into these adventures with the next door neighbors, who turn out to be aliens. And I've actually never read an alien book, and I thought it was so interesting because I've never read one before. I kind of hate the cover. It's kind of ugly. This is actually a library book. As soon as I finished Obsidian, I went to the library and they had all 4 on the shelf, so I just picked them all up. So if you have not read Obsidian, it is time for you to go. We'll come back when you have read it and we shall discuss all the spoilery action. Okay, so I actually read this on my phone, so I used like the Kindle app to take notes, which was really easy and convenient. It's actually a lot easier, I personally thought, than the Nook taking notes. So if that's something, if you're kind of deciding whether to get a Nook or a Kindle, I would definitely check out the note taking if that's something that is important to you. This book was a lot better than I expected it to be. Like, I did not expect this at all. When I finished it, I was just kind of about it, but once I started reading the second book, it got better and better, and now I'm on the third one, and I'm just so into this series. One of the biggest points of this book is Damien Black. He's just, I think he was intended to be that super cute, kind of like a parallel to all the books that she reads and all the heroes or male characters in the books that she reads, but I honestly didn't, like, I liked him. I thought he was, like, you know, cute or whatever, and like, oh, he was nice to her sometimes, and oh, sometimes he was mean to her and whatever. She didn't put up with his crap, but I really didn't like the way he treated her a lot of the time. I know that's just kind of like a kind of thing that a lot of authors do to, like, you know, introduce the characters and get them to fall in love or whatever. I'm much more partial to reading a book where the boy's nice to people and things like that. One thing I really did like was that there was no instant love. Like, all of a sudden they weren't in love. It was really not like that. They really did argue a lot. He really called him out on those kind of things, and that was exciting to read. Not, I hate you, I hate you, I hate you, let's make out kind of thing. Although there was a little bit of that in there. There was one makeup scene that just got a little bit uncomfortable for me personally. I was a little bit uncomfortable reading. And there was this one part where she says, you know what, screw you, Damon. Like, she isn't afraid to really just not put up with his sass, and it's just like crap. Like, come on, Damon. He is just so frustrating to her, but I'm so glad that she doesn't blame herself, and she also doesn't put up with it, and it's really refreshing to see that as from the main character. There were so many funny lines in this book. I highlighted all the funny lines in pink, and there's so many on here that I just love. They were so funny. Jennifer L. Armentrout, she's really witty. But another thing that she does is she uses curse words effectively. There are quite a lot of curse words in this book, which I wasn't really expecting because sometimes YA authors tend to shy away from that. But she took it and she went head first into it, so I think she made it work. The amount of curse words wasn't overbearing. It wasn't just put in there for no reason. She used them with tactic and she used them for a reason. I thought that the Ash and Damon relationship was really interesting. I found that like kind of dynamic really interesting because it was almost like Damon was trying to fight between what he was supposed to do and what he wanted to do, which was a huge overlying theme in the entire book, which is really interesting for me. And one of my favorite parts was Katie wants to come sit down with Dee and Damon, and she puts her food down and Ash says she doesn't need to sit with us, and I highlighted that and I wrote she can't sit with us, like from Mean Girls, and I laughed at that. Also when she dumped the food on them, I thought that was so rebellious and so much fun to read. A little bit unrealistic because if that had happened in my school, there would be some big trouble being ensued. I really liked the whole Lexan aspect. I thought it was so interesting how they really like the whole body glowed kind of thing. I've never read about aliens before, and that was such an interesting take to read about, as she could still like touch them kind of, and the whole glowy thing. The fight scene though was super intense, and the whole Aram aspect is really interesting to me, the DoD and the Aram, because the Aram, like the fact that there are two kinds of aliens, the bad ones and the good ones, kind of like human nature. I thought that was kind of a parallel, like good people and bad people. But the fact that they are like totally separate and that they don't have the same powers is interesting to me. Damon is really protective over Katie, and I thought that was an interesting part because when he's kind of beating up Simon, Damon says, "You thought what? Damon lifted him onto his feet. That no meant yes?" And I feel like that was really important to say because Katie kept saying no. She kept saying, "No, I do not want this." And he kept pursuing her, and I felt like that was a really strong point to point out. At the end where Dee and Damon kind of put their forces into Katie when they're very weak, and she takes out the arm. And I feel like this was such a pivotal moment for her because she's having this inner monologue, and she's saying, you know, I'm tired of crying. I'm tired of being so upset over my dad and the things that I can't do. I'm tired of being a bystander. And she says power coiled inside me, and she rose up and she killed the arm. And I feel like that's such a pivotal moment for Katie as a character. The whole book she'd been complaining about being a bystander. She was complaining about really just stepping back, save Katie. Innocent Katie would just kind of let Damon go and let him tease her. But she really wanted to spite him, and the whole book, it's building up to Katie really coming into herself and kind of not forgetting her father, but moving on from her father and moving on from all the resentment and all of the innocence that she has, and really taking that step forward and using the Lexan powers and taking out the Aram. And I feel like that was such a pivotal moment for her, but it's also really, really well written and really well thorough and very well explained. So I loved that part when she took out the arm. What is happening next? I really hope that they discover more about the DoD and the arm, because I feel like that's so fascinating. And yeah, so let me know your thoughts below. Give this video a big thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe. Bye guys. Sometimes YA authors kind of tend to shy away from that, but who on you?